I want to remind all of you what was told us back in 1981 by the former CIA director, William Casey. William Casey said, and I quote him, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." And I want to remind you that Senate Report 93549 revealed long ago that we are the enemy of the state. We're all the enemy. And I can say to you that what we're seeing right now in the NASA war document, of course I've talked about that for many years. So what we're seeing right now is a worldwide impact of ongoing IT revolution upon the global societies. What we're seeing right now is a forced transition, whether you like it or not. And what we're seeing is telecommuting, tele-shopping, tele-entertainment, tele-travel, tele-education, telemedicine, telecommerce, telepolitics, and tele-socialization. This is on page 16 of the NASA war document. And I would implore upon each and every single one of you to take a look at this document. It reveals much of what is occurring on the larger sense, because I'm going to be focusing specifically on Rockefeller and Rothschild's plans to literally bankrupt the global economy. This is a plan. Everything that we are observing that is occurring right now is a plan, a stealth plan that has been hatched many, many, many years ago. I'm going to remind you what the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document has told us. And I'm going to actually read some of that to you right now, because it's imperative as I continue to go through the plan that we all face as a result of COVID and the virus and the business. So again, in the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document, which you can download off of stopthecrime.net, and we've discussed this for a very long time. And in that document, it reveals that in 1954, at their first meeting at the Bilderberg Hotel, the global elite agreed to a corporative government taking control of the U.S. population. They have taken control of the global population. And of course, we are USA Inc. The U.S. military described this program in detail in a technical manual dated May of 1979 called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. This plan was a result of the joint efforts of Rockefeller, Harvard, and the U.S. Air Force. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. On page 4, it told us this: "It's patently impossible to discuss social engineering or the automation of a society, the engineering of societal automation systems, silent weapons, on a national or worldwide scale, without implying extensive objectives of social control and destruction of human life, slavery, and genocide." Now I'm going to pause for a moment, because I have many videos on stopthecrime.net about genocide. I have multiple videos on many of the topics you're going to hear me discuss right now. So I'm going to go on a little bit more with Silent Weapons. For those of you that may not have had an opportunity to read it, I would again ask you to please read it. The Manual of Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars in and of itself is an analog, a declaration of intent. Such a writing must be secured from public scrutiny. Otherwise, it might be recognized as a technically formal declaration of domestic warfare. Furthermore, whenever any person or group of persons in position of great power and without full knowledge and consent of the public uses their knowledge and methodologies for economic conquest, it must be understood that a state of domestic warfare exists between the people in control and the group of persons and the public. We are at war. We are at war. On page 5, the original purpose of the operations research was to study the strategic and tactical problems of air and land defense with the objective of effective use of limited military resources against foreign enemies. It was about logistics. It was soon recognized by those in position of power, Rockefeller and Rothschild, that the same methodologies could be useful for totally controlling our society, and it has. With these three inventions under their direction, those in positions of power strongly suspected that it was possible for them to control the world with the push of a button. They are now controlling the world with the push of a button. Immediately, the Rockefeller Foundation got onto the ground floor by making a 4-year grant to Harvard College, funding the Harvard Economic Research Project for the study, the structure of American economy. 1 year later, in 1949, the United States Air Force joined in. It's important to understand that all branches of military are under the control of those in control, the 1% of the 1%. Make no mistake. We are engaged in a warfare of proportions that most people find difficult to wrap their heads around. So, the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars goes on to tell us war is therefore the balancing system by killing the true creditors. That's all of us. We, the people, that's all of us, worldwide, killing the true creditors. The public, which they have taught to exchange true value for inflated currency, and falling back on whatever is left of the resources of nature and regeneration of those resources. I'm going to read that again, because what we're going to get into right now is going to underscore the ability of our future survival. And again, our lives are going to depend on falling back on whatever is left of the resources of nature and the regeneration of those resources. Then, in 1976, Congress decided to modify the national state of emergency, but continued to classify the American people as the enemy. We are the enemy of the state. The populations worldwide are the enemy of this corporate takeover, Earth Inc. We're all the enemy. That's why we are being set upon with poisonous water, increasing frequencies that are diminishing our ability to continue to survive. The 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, the global grid, the smart meters, the wireless water meters, and the concern of 5G. We are the enemy. And the future, by those that are in control, depend on 5G being rolled out. That is a requirement for the future transition of humans into transhumanism. The CDC is a private, for-profit corporation doing business. The CDC is not a government health advocacy organization. It is a corporation listed on Dun & Bradstreet and headquartered in the state of Georgia, with strong ties to the pharmaceutical industry. Therefore, their recommendations are influenced by the fiscal health of their corporation. Understand, when your local news media and outlets and your local health agencies tell you that they're following CDC guidelines. CDC guidelines are a business of vaccinations and vaccines. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. The state and public health institutions are also private, for-profit corporations doing business. When I hear our local health CEO advisor talk to us about social distancing here in Sonoma County, where I am, I know that she is working for the cabal. She's taking marching orders from those that are set to destroy us. And the media is compliant. We know this. So the state and public health institutions, as I said, are private, for-profit corporations doing business. Medical clinic records are frequently reviewed by state public health departments, which are also for-profit corporations listed on Dun & Bradstreet. Did you know that? Did you know that? Who receive money and compensation from the CDC to perform their functions. Therefore, state public health departments' recommendations and actions are influenced by the fiscal health of their own corporations. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. This is a vast network that is void of ethics and morality and has set to destroy everything that is good and decent. Everything. The American Academy of Pediatrics is also a private for-profit corporation doing business. The American Academy of Pediatrics is not a health advocacy organization. It is a trade association corporation also listed on Dun & Bradstreet, headquartered in the state of Illinois, whose monetary compensation from vaccine manufacturers contributes to the fiscal health of their corporation. Physicians get more money for each fully vaccinated child from the CDC, the World Health Organization, and all of the other funders, Bill Gates, the Clinton Foundation, and more. Physicians who are intentionally misinformed by the CDC, and I said intentionally misinformed by the CDC and Big Pharma, cannot be sued for vaccination injuries. You know that. They are paid higher insurance reimbursement rates for each fully vaccinated child. This is profits for science. Motivate vaccine mandates. This is the Rockefeller plan to use bioweapons to impose martial law, one quarantine at a time. The name of this document is Scenarios for Future Technology and International Development. These are the plans to allow for absolute massive achievement of scenario planning. This is script writing in advance of creating the realities that are being created for us. That's why this is important to understand this document. And I've gone over many documents over the years. These are all evidence-based documents. It is in their words. And as I go through this is not to scare you. This is to empower you by knowing what their plans are. So you can decide what you're going to do to survive. Because again, I read to you just a bit ago in Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, we're going to have to rely upon what is left in nature. And that's what this plan is going to divulge. It's going to be up to every single one of you on how you choose going forward. And I can tell you that being metered, any type of metering, be it water, be it electricity, be it gas, or even propane, you're hooked up to a system that is set to be withdrawn from you. And we will go over that also. But it's important to understand about this document, the Rockefeller plan to bankrupt the world along with Rothschild and the other purveyors of this evil. The report is the result of extensive effort and collaboration among Rockefeller Foundation's initiative staff, foundation grantees, and external experts. The Rockefeller Foundation and the GBN would like to extend special thanks to all of the individuals who contributed their thoughtfulness to this plan and their expertise to this plan throughout this script writing scenario. Others' enthusiasm and participation in interviews and workshops and the ongoing iteration of the scenario made this co-creative process more stimulating and engaging than it could ever have been otherwise. So I want all of you to understand before I break into this, because this is going to be outrageous. It is outrageous. This is exactly what you're seeing in the daily briefings with the task force that is being shown to you on television with Fauci and all of the other quote-unquote leaders of expert advice telling us how we need to shelter in place and destroy the economies and ratchet down our lives to the year 1700, because these have been the plans all along. They're following a script. This is scenario planning, and it is fully engaged. I want to go over something most important. It's about the Wildlands Project. It's about the closings of all your parks, beaches, walkways, and now we're finding that people that park and watch the sunset in San Diego, California, are being issued $1,000 fines. Soon we will be issued fines for going outside our homes. This is an intentional shrinking of our ability to access land. And this was foretold in the Wildlands Project. Now, many of you may know, many of you may not, what is involved in the Wildlands Project and in the deep ecology. And I want to outline that now, because as I go over this Rockefeller document in this next segment, you can reflect on what I'm telling you right now. The goal of the Wildlands Project is to set aside more than 50% of the North American continent as wildlands. Now, we're not only just talking about America, we're talking about worldwide set-aside reserves and preserves where human access is denied. It's for the preservation, we're being told, of biological diversity. The project has sought to create reserve networks across all continents. Reserves are made up of the following. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. I'm going to hit the high parts. You need to know you're seeing this happening now wherever you live, whatever country you're in, whatever island you're living on, preserves are being set aside. So they're saying that they are creating cores which are created from public lands such as national forests and parks. Our national forests and parks are being shut down. Even some of our bike paths we are not able to ride bikes on now. The buffers, they say, are created from private land adjoining the cores to provide additional protection. Protection. Did you hear that? Protection. Corridors are a mix of private and public lands, usually following along rivers and wildlife migration routes. The primary characteristics of core areas are that they are no less in size than 100,000 acres and desirably over 2 million acres in the continental United States, and they allow for little, if any, human access. The primary characteristics and the 8 points of deep ecology can be summarized as follows. All life, human and non-human, has equal value. So as I dig into this Rockefeller document, you'll see why we will not be allowed to eat food derived from nature. That is why the president, the CEO, the crisis actor of this United States has created an executive order bringing in biofoods and GMO foods. We're going to talk about what that will do to the global populations in the revealing of this scenario planning with Rockefeller and Rothschild. Resource consumption above what is needed to supply vital human needs is immoral. I want you to hold on to this as you are watching what is determined to be essential jobs. You're also now seeing what is not essential in some of your stores, such as buying clothes, buying shoes. Again, resource consumption above what is needed to supply vital human needs is immoral. It is being decided for you what you need for vital survivability. And if you use more than what is decided for you, you are immoral. Human population must be reduced, and civilizations must radically change present economic, technological, and ideological structures, and that's what we are seeing right now. Believers in this plan have the obligation to implement the necessary changes. The Wildlands Project itself is supported by thousands of groups working towards its long-term implementation, and implementation may take 100 years or more. They're not short-sighted in their planning. What we are all facing right now is stealth long-range planning, 100 years or more. This global shutdown and bankruptcy didn't happen in just a few months. This was part of a strategic scenario plan. The Wildlands Project has received billions of dollars in support from wealthy and private corporate foundations, and some of which is the Turner Foundation. We're talking about the Ted Turner Foundation. Many of you may have seen the interview that I recounted when I spoke with Ted Turner a few years ago. It's up on YouTube. The name is something like Ted the Malthusian, Ted the Terrible Turner. And he talked about massive depopulation, massive restrictions of resources, because he said we would be running out of water and food. I want you to hold on to one bright spot, and actually many bright spots, but one right now is that we are not running out of water. We have primary water. So go to our other website, primarywater.org. Spread this information out far and wide. I can tell you people are listening. People are getting to primary water. Many people are doing this. Are you one of them? Because you must get to water. Any way you can, support those that are in the wildlands urban interface and help them and get to the water that they need. Your survival and your participation now will require joining together and starting a network of communities to survive, and you'll hear about that. I'm going to finish this because then we're going to take a break and get back into the document in full. But the Wildlands Project, again, is supported by millions and billions of dollars by wealthy and private corporations. I mentioned the Ted Turner Foundation, Patagonia, W. Alton Jones Foundation, the Lundhurst Foundation, and hundreds of others. The conclusion: the Wildlands Project exists within legal boundaries. In other words, they've made the illegal legal, just as our criminal courts are presumably courts for justice. It is the most highest ranking injustice set up that most people cannot even imagine. It's all corrupt. Everything is rigged. They say that because all of the planning for the Wildlands Project exists within legal boundaries, that should not prevent them from being concerned. At the very least, it advocates an extreme manifestation of environmental and public policy. Therefore, any claim the Wildlands Project makes towards public policy must be debated. I'm going to add right now, must be debated. This is what you're seeing with the task force. This is what you're seeing in the advisory groups. The visual illusion of a debate on television and at every level of the corporate agency structure worldwide. It is the illusion of your consent, because debate is your agreement, and it is not. And ultimately decided in the public arena, so giving again the illusion. Yet to date, it has existed, these plans have existed in anonymity, beyond the knowledge of the wider public. We're going to pause now for a moment, and then we're going to resume into part 2. So I would again ask you to share this portion far and wide and help us get this information out, because the next part is going to be what you're going to need to know moving forward.